Dust Warfare is a tabletop miniatures war game set in the alternate universe of Paulo Parente's Dust, where the history has gone completely different in the wake of an alien spaceship discovery. Every side is jockeying for this new technology. Walking tanks are now dominating the battlefield. Larger-than-life heroes running around, dominating key moments in history.
There's some soldiers that have laser weapons. The Allies have phaser technology, and these super weapons now have allowed these elite soldiers to fight war at a scale the world had never seen before.
It's this wonderful hobby experience with the same excitement and innovation that we've seen in Dust Tactics, but with the added hobby aspect.
If you already play Dust Tactics, then you already have what you need to play Dust Warfare. The addition of a ruler and the core rulebook, you're set to experience an entirely new take of this alternative look at World War II on the tabletop. So in the world of Dust Warfare, there are three primary factions. We've got the Allies, we have the Axis, and now we have the Sino-Soviet Union. And each of the three factions has a very different play style, have different flavor elements in their background and in their look and feel.
In Dust Warfare, you use custom terrain that you make. You could use your kitchen table. You could use beautifully crafted terrain to build elaborate battlefields as big as you want to make them. So it changes the scale and the scope of the game.
Players in Dust Warfare begin by building their army. They collect miniatures and use them to create platoons. Each player will choose which one of these platoons they're going to bring. They'll choose the elements that are going into their platoons. They'll upgrade them. They'll pick different units, and then they'll bring it to the tabletop to compete.
One of the really exciting things about Dust Warfare is the fact that because Dust Tactics has been so successful over the past year and a half, there are entire armies already released for the Allies and Axis factions. Everything from massive heavy walkers to scout units, wide variety of troops, and now we're going to be seeing, with the introduction of the Sino-Soviet forces, air units introduced into the game.
Well, the first step is for you and your opponent to jockey for position on the Battle Builder. The Battle Builder is something new for Dust Warfare. Each player has a certain number of points that they bid to attempt to influence the deployment, the objective, and the different conditions around the battlefield. So you'll take a look at your opponent's army and try and create the best possible scenario for you to fight them in.
You've created your forces, you've established the parameters using the Battle Builder, and now you're ready to play. And the turn structure is very simple to understand, but allows a ton of flexibility.
The first thing you do is roll for initiative. Each player counts the number of units they have on the table and rolls one dice for them. This means the player who has the most stuff left is probably going to go last, because the player with the fewest hits goes first. That means if you've taken some damage, if you're in a bad position, or things are starting to turn against you, you've got the opportunity to rally.
In the command phase, you have a limited number of options. You have a limited opportunity to take a certain number of actions before your unit phase. And these actions can be incredibly important on the battlefield because your opponent is not going to have an opportunity to react.
You can give individual units a single action order. So they can move, they can fire once, or you can issue special orders that vary by the different armies that you're playing.
If you're using a allied platoon that has the ability to call in a long tom strike, you can roll a die and hopefully bring in a powerful airstrike that will put a big dent in your opponent's army. You can also take an action, moving a unit into cover better, or just taking a shot at a nearby enemy. Lastly, you can rally your own units, getting rid of suppression and making sure they don't run away, and that during the unit phase they can do all that they're meant to do.
Then you move into the unit phase, which in a lot of ways is the heart of the game. After you've set up your strategy during the command phase, now it's time to execute it.
The unit phase comes after both players have taken their command phase, in the same order that the command phases were taken. So the initiating player activates each one of his units. Each unit gets 2 actions they can take, and that number is reduced based on reactions they've already taken during the turn, and of course suppression. So if they've been shot at and they're keeping their heads down, they're going to take fewer actions.
Units that were not activated during the command phase, though, can take 2 actions. They can move and fire, they can take a sustained fire action, or they can double move to get into cover or set themselves up for a future round.
One of the most innovative things about the unit phase is the reaction. In the past, hobby gamers have gotten used to waiting for their opponent to finish his turn. In Warfare, you can react. Your opponent moves forward. If they come within 12 inches of you, you can shoot them, you can fall back into position. If they're advancing on the piece of terrain you're in, you can hunker down, you can attempt to wither them with fire. There's just an infinite number of options where both players are acting all the time. Combat in Dust Warfare is a visceral experience. Every weapon has its own weapon line. This series of statistics tells you how many dice you'll roll against every other type of armor. So a M1 AR will have 2 shots against a Soldier 1 or 1 shot against a Soldier 2. So players will gather the number of dice that they're going to roll. They roll the dice, and for every hit on the combat dice they get, they'll deal that amount of damage. So an M1 AR, you've got a unit of 5 firing. They'll roll 5 dice, and for every hit, you'll do a point of damage to the enemy.
What we're doing with Dust Warfare is releasing campaign sourcebooks. And the first to be released, the one that we've announced, is Operation Zverograd, which will allow you to play the Sino-Soviet Union, which is the newest faction, as well as any of the new units that have been released for the Axis and the Allies.
And these campaign expansions will allow us to give you full rules for all of the new models that were released. So every time a model is released, it will be completely playable in both Dust Tactics and Dust Warfare.
As a long-term miniatures campaign player, I'm really excited about the organized play aspects of Dust Warfare. We've really designed it from the ground up to play well at both a tournament or a campaign, even if it's just 5 guys in their garage putting together a campaign over a few weeks, or if it's a huge 80-player tournament at a large convention. We really wanted Dust Warfare to serve them both and to really be designed for the organized play environment.
If you're a tabletop miniatures war gamer, if you're excited about the setting, then you really owe it to yourself to check out this game. You open the box, the miniatures are pre-primed and pre-assembled, and you can actually just enjoy the game, get right into the combat, right into developing your strategies on the tabletop.